Give him a great big cheer. Yay, Jesus. Woo! He is wonderful. Well, it's great to have you all with us again. I think a number of you are still out at lunch. Hopefully just physically, not mentally or spiritually. We trust if you're here, you're really with us, spirit, soul, and body. First of all, I want to make note before we introduce our workshop speakers for the afternoon that there's a number of you that signed up for prophetic ministry this afternoon. Do you know who you are? Good. Well, apparently you did not receive a slip to say the time of your prophetic ministry, and so we are asking you to please remember that. If you could remember the time and go up to the proper place, which will be in downstairs at the time that you signed up for. So make sure you do that, and if you have a friend who's not here yet that you know signed up, if you would please pass that message along to them. Anyway, if you've got your Pastors and Leaders Conference Guide with you, you might want to turn. If you want to turn either to page number 4 or you can turn to page 10 because it'll tell you either or. But we've got guest 8 workshop speakers that we're going to be having up. If you're on the Growing Your Local Church track, we want to be able to welcome up both Steve Long as well as Rick Durazio to come up. If you're doing the Stewarding His Presence track, could we please have Patricia Bootsma, who's here already, as well as Mary Audrey Raycroft, come on up. If you're on the Developing Effective Administration track, could we please have Michael Hughes and Christine Valens come on down? And for Harnessing Media and Technology, if we've got Jonathan Puddle and Benjamin Jackson to come. And Dan Slade, if he's not in the back, you can come up with Rick as well. But let's each take 30 seconds. If you can again tell us the track that you're on.
Stephen,
we'll
come on up here.
Steven.
Stephen's session is going to be right here in the main auditorium.
So we're talking about how to expand the reach of your church. We have 11 venues for our church, and 80% of the people who go to those different venues have no history with this building. So our growth has been through multiple campuses. And our church is double the size because we have multiple venues. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
And then 3:30 on the same track in the main auditorium. Rick Durazio.
We are doing Extending Your Reach through church planting. And this is really for anybody, you want to plant, you're in a plant, or even if you want to relaunch your church. We want to look at launching and planting really, really healthy churches and how we can do that.
Thank you, Rick. Stewarding His Presence, Patricia Bootsma.
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking on houses of prayer, prayer and worship movement that the Lord is birthing on the earth, the Tabernacle of David, how to see this happen, some practical stuff, as well as, being a Tabernacle of David ourselves, people of prayer, and seeing the results of God moving in response to intercession and worship.
And you'll be meeting where, Patricia?
Upstairs at, right now, 2 o'clock after this.
Upstairs right now, and Mary Audrey will follow you at 3:30 to speak about...
Well, everybody's waiting for the prophetic guru to come to town. And little do we realize that this room is full of prophetic people. And He's placed that ability there within you as a child of God. And so this afternoon we're going to do a miracle and get about 4 hours of teaching in an hour and a half on the ABCs of the prophetic and what it looks like and how God's heart is in this, and that you and I are called to be able to express this on a day-by-day basis, with not only just in our everyday life, but in our church families and perhaps even in farther afield than that. So it'll be the very basics on the gift of prophecy at whatever time, 3:30.
3:30, so that's the ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. And
ABCs, 1, 2, 3.
And more of that, again, you're on page 13. If you want to flip with us to page 14 for Understanding Best Charity Practices with Michael Hughes.
Probably the most exciting session of the day. We're going to just go through, it doesn't matter if you're a Canadian charity, an American charity, whether you're a pastor, a board member, a congregation member, just things you can do to stay above reproach, protect your charity, because there's been no shortage of scandals around, but it'll be fun. Should all come.
And right after Michael at 3:30 is, yes, they're meeting underneath the mezzanine. Yeah, underneath mezzanine is Christine Valens. How many of you like the way the bookstore is run and looks? Isn't it amazing? Yeah, it's phenomenal. This woman is responsible.
Hi, I'm going to be doing a workshop on how to start a resource center in your church. And I'll be sharing information just on how you do that, some of the things we've learned of what works well, what doesn't work well, Also, we have some of our Canadian supplier and vendors here that love to support churches, and they'll be happy to answer questions, and we'll just share what we have.
Thank you, Christine. And then we got the harnessing media and technology. Sounds like a runaway stallion or something, doesn't it? So let's get, speaking of stallions, John Puddle.
That is fantastic. It's the best introduction I've ever had in my life. If you want to get dressed like me, we're meeting over there, so you got to kind of warm up. It's snowing outside if you haven't noticed. We're going to talk about software because there are a lot of fantastic tools available today to make your lives as pastors and administrators easier, more cost-effective, more secure. If you looked at the little blurb, if you're on the road somewhere, you lose your laptop, where's all your stuff? Where's your notes, your memoirs? We're going to talk about backup, disaster recovery, and how the technology cloud can make your life easier. Yeah.
Very good. Over in the School of Ministry building. So going from a New Zealand background to a UK background in that track is Benjamin Jackson.
That's me. Hi, everyone. I oversee communications here at Catch the Fire, and one of the things we realize is there's so many things that we have to communicate, and we have to communicate them well. So what I'm going to be talking about is how to actually build an atmosphere of trust by communicating with consistency, and really just trying to help your congregation to feel like they're on the same page as you. So this is, it's for your media teams, it's for your marketing team, but it's also for you pastors if you want to learn how to just build that trust relationship with your congregation. Great.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. All right, so let's all stand and go, or if you're staying in this session, by the way, you can move up. Feel free to come and fill the front rows and the front areas. Don't worry about signs in the seats. And so let's all go now to our various workshops, the various places. Check your book again if you need to review.
And so at 3:25, the first session will be completed. You'll have about a 10-minute break to switch sessions or do as you please. Be blessed.
Checking 1, 2, 3, 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 check, 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 chalk, check, check, 1, 2, caching, visaing, crediting, checking, there we go, all right. Those of you that are staying with my session, if you move right up to the front, because we're going to be talking and answering questions and all those kind of things. So if you're staying here, front and center, wunderbar. There's more anointed seats in the front row. The canon was sitting there. Carol Arnott here, John here, Paul Minwaring, Mark Stibbe over here. So, Kevin, are you able to put my slide up as well, please? You guys ready for me to start on cameras? Very good. We shall begin. Well, welcome everybody. And can I just begin by asking some questions? Do any of you have multiple campuses already? You do. Okay. Whereabouts are you, sir?
Brampton, Hamilton, and
Brampton, Hamilton, and Scarborough. So you got 3 venues. Are you one church, 3 locations? 3 independent churches?
2 is more campuses.
2 are campuses, okay.
Brampton, Hamilton,
You oversee Scarborough. Okay, good. And did you put your hand up?
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, yep.
We're a small church, but we have 2 college campuses.
2 college campuses.
Sunday night, Saturday night.
Okay, very good. Anyone else have multiple campuses? Anyone thinking of going multiple campuses? I would imagine that's why you're here. Good. So just give you a quick history. By the way, everything I'm going to show you, if you want to send me an email or go to the Facebook page, you'll be able to get all the notes rather than having to take the notes. Our history was that this church has started 25 churches. And those churches became independent churches and had the choice of aligning themselves with whoever they wanted to. And this church began as the Vineyard, and so many of them are Vineyard churches. And then when we were asked to not be a part of the Vineyard and Partners in Harvest started, most of them either switched over to become Partners in Harvest or new ones became part of Partners in Harvest. If there was a little bit of a hope on the part of John Arnott, was that those churches, when they were starting, would continue to always have the same identity and DNA as this local church. But whenever you're an independent church, that is not going to happen because God gives every pastor a new vision and a new identity. And so you just, every time you start a church, it is going to be slightly different, even though it's family, brothers, friends, all that kind of stuff. They're just going to be slightly different. And if John had a frustration, it was that he was sort of always had a dream to take over the city of Toronto and to have influence. And so when you're giving away new churches and they have their own identity, you know, you're doing good for the kingdom, but you maybe aren't sort of trying to get your DNA everywhere. And there wasn't too many churches that we were aware of that were doing multiple sites. The first one that we really came in contact with is in England, in London, called Kensington Temple, which is a large Elam Pentecostal church, which at its height was around 20,000 people and 200 campuses. Now, most of those were video sites, someone's house. So it may only been 10 people in the house, but everything was on video. You just basically were watching. The larger ones were in schools, and they have pastors and live bands and all that kind of stuff. And so that really began to tweak us into how can you start a church but without starting a church? Can you start a church that's just like some churches have double meetings? Have you ever been in churches where it's two morning meetings, 3 morning meetings, that kind of thing? Well, the people in the first meeting and the second meeting, very good chance that they don't know each other. They may not even pass in the parking lot. And so you've got 2 sort of independent congregations that are growing without necessarily really being one, and yet they are one. So we've just taken, campuses just taken that one step further. Instead of 2 morning meetings in the same venue, we have 2 morning meetings in 2 locations. Well, now we're up to 11 locations. And all of our meetings are live. None of our meetings are video. Everything we've done has always been live meetings, so it's live bands, live preaching, live kids' workers, and all that kind of stuff. I was talking to Paul Manwaring yesterday, and he was telling me that there is already one church that has taken technology to its peak. And they have, instead of video, they are using, what is the phrase? It's 3D technology. They are presenting an image of the pastor live on the stage. He is not there. Holograms. There's one church already in America that the pastor preaches via hologram. It's like, oh my goodness, that sounds cool. So anyways, who knows where things are going to go to? Do you know the name of that church?
No. It's the answer to cloning.
It's the answer to cloning, exactly. That's what it is. So here's what we're going to do. I will run through some stuff, and at any time you want me to stop, we'll stop. However, we do have a lot to cover, and so if we're getting bogged down on one thing, I'll just say, guys, we've got to stop, and we'll keep moving. Would that be all right? So just put your hand up, and we'll talk about that. Tom, do you mind coming up to the front and holding the microphone, and if people want to talk to, we just get them on record for those that are listening to the recording down the line, so you just have to press the red button. All right, so 3,000 multiple church venues or churches in North America. This is a big trend for churches to expand their reach by having multiple campuses. And the biggest of the biggest churches, half of them have multiple sites. And the newest trend is mergers, is struggling churches coming together so that they can be more stronger, more effective, and having a legacy. So we are one church that is multiple site. We are very much a multicultural church. I wish that many of you could be here on a Sunday and you would just see the world. So these flags here represent people who were born in those nations. This is not trying to have the maps of the world or the flags of the world, and we don't even have all of them up. There's about 90 flags there. We figure there's about 150 nationalities in our church who were born in that nation. 2/3 of our church were not born in Canada. 2 of every 3 people not born in Canada. So we're an immigrant church. And the benefit of the Toronto blessing going around the world, or at least that term, is that if people move to Toronto and to Canada, they want to come to our church. So we get our fair share of transfers without having to work for it. We have 10 principles that hold us together, and I'm going to go through them real quick. So we have the same purpose statement, which is at the back of the wall there. And this sort of overrides everything that we do, and every one of our churches functions with the same theme. Number 2, have the same goals. And we have 4 goals that that we feel the Lord's given to us, that we judge everything by. Does this fit in with one of those goals? And the first one is we love the Holy Spirit, and so if the Holy Spirit says jump, we jump. So everything's about the Holy Spirit for our church. We want to impact our city of Toronto, or if you're in Hamilton campus, like the band, other than the 2 guys on the right, the drum and the bass player, or from our Hamilton campus, which is 45 minutes away from here. And it started in September, and they're like 75 adults right now. So they started with about 50. We try to have 50 as our core. And in Canada, the average size church is 75. So if you got 50 to start with, you're almost there already. And just slowly work at it and just do outreaches, get to know people, do visiting, mailings, marketing, all those different kind of things. So we want to impact the cities we're in. We want to raise up leaders, and we want to communicate very, very well. That's the communication is one of the things that is the hardest to do, but you have to do it. And if you don't communicate well, you're in trouble. All of our campuses have the same strategy in terms of how we go about moving people towards being a disciple of Jesus. We want people saved. We want to get them connected into a cell group. Then we want to be discipling them, and we have a whole process of how we disciple people. And then we want to send them out as leaders. So this is based on the Great Commission and the Great Commandment. Those are the 2 commandments that we function by at our church. If it's in one of those passages that's called great, we're into it. That's basically what we do. We also have the same training takes place at all the different venues. Not all the venues offer training the same way, but it's the same content, it's the same things. Sometimes it's video at smaller campuses, sometimes the training's in a house, sometimes it's before a morning meeting, after a morning meeting. We only have 2 of our campuses have their own permanent building. So this is the primary building that we have. And our Newmarket campus 2 Sundays ago just dedicated a new building. They're there for a 5-year lease. Seats about 250 people, and the bad news was it was full for a Sunday. It was full last week as well, so we're going to probably have to go to double campuses real quick, or double meetings there. So all the different training, it's the same content everywhere because we're one church. In terms of our pastoral team, John and Carol are the founding pastors of Catch the Fire Toronto. The Catch the Fire Toronto also has senior pastors, and that happens to be my wife and I. And so our job is to oversee all the campuses. Our job is to oversee all the pastors. And we meet with each of the pastors normally every second week for 45 minutes to an hour. So they get a one-on-one with Sandra and I, and there's 2 parts to that. How's it going at your campus? Where are you stuck with red tape and bureaucracy in our ministry? What do we need to do to help you? What's your next steps that you're looking to do? And then we also spend time, how are you doing? How's your marriage? How's your walk with God? Those kind of things. So that's primarily our job, is to raise up the pastors and keep them healthy, and to then raise up other leaders. John and Patricia Bootsma, who are just hosting our sessions today, they came back from we're a church plant of their church, where they used to be in Stratford, Ontario, which is John Arnott's first church. So they've come back, and in September, they became the pastors of this campus. And prior to that, my wife and I were the pastors of this campus, as well as everything. So they've taken a big load off of our plate to allow us to do a little bit more. And we're hoping to start a church in Calgary this year, and also in Halifax this year. So that's going to take a little bit of our time. Question?
So the youth, kids, and worship pastor, is that for each campus? Or just
Okay. There's one youth pastor for the whole church. But at every venue, depending on if there's youth, there'll be youth leaders, but they're all function under the one pastor. Does that make sense? So there's one person. We're trying to have unity And that's instead of having 6 youth pastors, even though there's a person designated, sometimes the title youth pastor, but they're under the covering of the one group, if that makes sense. Right. We have one admin team. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but 25% of every income stream for our church, including the campuses, including our bookstore, including our cafe, including our school of ministry, any place that brings money in pays mama. And we all pay for services that we get. So the tax, if you want to use that, is 25%. So the tax for us gets you your corporate executive kind of, like our executive director. It covers our financial team, covers our IT, it covers our communications team that do all the marketing. It covers the receptionist that answer the phone. All the things that we share together, we cap at 25%. So their budgets can't go larger than 25%. Our campuses, I'm going to talk about this as well later, pay an additional 2% towards the big church things. Like, for example, we have a number of missionaries, people from our church that we have sent out, and they get a small salary from our church. Well, that's billed to all of the campuses, but missionaries aren't billed to the bookstore, if that makes sense. So there's an additional 2% for those kind of things. And then Partners in Harvest, which is the covering group for us, have a 2.5%, we call it like a Bud Light. It's a light tithe, it's 2.5%. And Catch the Fire World, which is the bigger group that we're part of, the Catch the Fire World churches, have 7.5%. So 10% of all of our campus income goes as a tithe. We have one financial model. Oh, here I am. I got ahead of myself. So every campus has its own budget. Once their budget is approved, they live within their budget. And if they have extra income, great. They have extra money to spend. If they have less income, not great. Because it means that they're probably going to have to cut back unless we have decided that actually there's some mitigating circumstances that have happened for that, and we want to override that and just pour money in. So not every campus makes money for us. Can I just tell you that at the very beginning? Not every campus makes money, but all of them have a budget. So even if the budget is to lose money, they still function within their budget. Is that okay in that? So the newer campuses generally take a while to get up to speed and covering all the different costs as those kind of things go on. Questions about that? All right. We have one communications and web strategy, so all the different things that we do, the looks. So any of our campuses that you go to, you are going to be seeing the same kind of signs, the same kind of branding, the same kind of material on the connection tables, the information things. There's one website. Each campus has one page on their website as of now. We just sort of overloaded our website. We just got too much stuff on there, so we're working on a better way to do that, to give some of the campuses more pages, like to just be able to go a little bit deeper. But basically, we're trying to continually say we're just one church. It just happens that we meet in different places during the week. We also have the same sermon series. So half of the year, all of our campuses are speaking the same sermon. So right now, we're in a sermon series on our vision statement for this year. And our vision for this year is expanding your kingdom by pursuing your presence. So that's our theme this year, is we want to pursue God's presence, and we are assuming that as we do that, the kingdom will be expanded. So the first week, there was a video and a quick little overview. Last week at most of the campuses was a talk on how do we actually pursue God's presence. This coming Sunday at most of the campuses is a talk on how do we expand the kingdom of God. Generally, I would write the outlines, but the pastors are not obligated to go with my outline. Half of our pastors only get a part-time salary, 2 days a week or 3 days a week. Half of our pastors don't have Bible school training in terms of putting together sermons and things like that. And so if there is a rough outline that is there for them, that saves them a few hours. They can take what they like, discard what they like, they can adapt it, they can change it, they can make it their own. I have heard many of our pastors preach my outline far better than I did and bring in all sorts of amazing stuff, and it's like, okay, so why am I doing this? I have time to do that. I find writing outlines very, very easy. I'm very analytical, and so I can take passages, break them down very quick, and do that kind of thing. Naomi, who's sitting over here, is from our Newmarket campus. Naomi has written some of our topics as well. Depending on the theme, we'll, at our pastors' meetings, which we have once or every Thursday night, we have a half an hour all together for scheduling kind of things and just talking about stuff. We will at that point decide what are the themes, what are the sermon series that we want to be doing 3 months in advance, 6 months in advance. And someone will say, well, I would love to write the sermon on that topic, that topic, that topic. And so one person writes it for all, and then we can go crazy if we like it or not. So it just helps keep everyone on the same theme. But we also recognize that each campus has uniquenesses that they need to speak their own things and their own revelation at that campus. And so the other 6 months, they get to talk on other themes that they would like that feel are for them. One of the fun things that happens is sometimes the little in-between series that one campus does is so good and so anointed that the rest of us pick it up a little bit later on. So for example, a couple years ago, when the movie Sex and the City came out, our young adult campus downtown did a whole talk on Sex and the City, talking about being single because 90% of their congregants are single. And sadly, some of them are involved in sexual activities and things like that. And so they were just talking about all sorts of interesting things that most adult churches don't talk about. And the other campuses, when they heard about this, it's like, oh, we got to do that as well. And so we did it at all the campuses, and it was one of the better series that we did. And the outlines were all from our young adult pastors. And it was like real in-your-face stuff. So our people like in-your-face stuff. They just, what's the Bible say? What do we do? Last one on this is we are just getting ready to launch our version of membership. And this is going to be starting loosely in February. We have resisted the idea of having membership because a lot of people come from churches where if you're a member, that means you get a vote. We don't want votes. We're not a congregational government. We are a benevolent dictatorship, if I can use that expression. And so it's not that, and to the best of my ability or understanding, we've never had a vote in the life of our church. We try to really be a theocracy, which is the Old Testament form of government, which is where God speaks and we follow. So that's what we're trying to do. So we function in consensus, is that we talk things through, the pastors talk through pastoral issues, our administrators talk and pray through practical kind of things, and we're trying to hear the voice of the Lord and make decisions. And decisions are made at the lowest place, not the highest place. Yes, sir. Question?
Yeah, just wondering, are there times during...
He'll get you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Are there times during the year or certain seasons where you do pull everyone together and meet like together for a special meeting, like campuses?
Yes. We would do that about 4 times a year. We would have a thing called Ministry Workers Night. So 4 times a year, we bring all of the people who serve in any ministry role, and we bring them together. And sometimes it is for a teaching time, an equipping time. Sometimes it is for information and launching new programs, new ministries, those kind of things. For example, we had a barbecue in the summer at Gilberto's house. Gilberto has he married well, let's just put it like that. And his wife has a monster home, huge backyard. We can get 200 people in his backyard, no sweat. And Mark Stibbe's staying at your place right now. So anyways, we went there and we provide steak for everybody, and people bring salads and desserts, and we have a big barbecue together as a church. And it was to present 4 or 5 new things. And one of them was, we're thinking of starting a version of membership. We just share it quickly. What do you think? People get back to us. We generally don't have discussions there. It's think about it, right back. And then we now present back to the what's going on. For example, we have 200 plus cell groups across the city. And there'll be, our cell leaders function as the next level of pastors. They know what's going on. And a lot of times in my weekly email to all the cell leaders to encourage them, equip them, to motivate them, is I'll share something and say, we're thinking about this, give me your input back. And they just quickly send emails. And that just helps us to think through. Most of the time they don't respond because they haven't heard from the Lord or just don't care or whatever. Yeah, we had one vote that I can remember being a part of. This was not our original building when the Holy Spirit came. We were on the other side of the airport, and we had scheduled to do a conference, a prophetic conference, at the Regal Constellation Hotel, which is no longer there. It's just been demolished. And so we're scheduled there, and we had only booked half of the main ballroom to have 1,500 people. This is a church of 300 people booking a room for 1,500 way in advance of the revival beginning, thinking that'd be good. We'll have the book table, we'll do ministry, all that kind of stuff in there. Well, now that the revival's come, everyone wants to come to that conference. And I'm trying to think, oh my goodness, what do we do? Because I was the organizer, the administrator. And one night I had a dream. And in my dreams, I quite often have conversations with Jesus, which is quite interesting because we're just talking. And he's mentoring me. He's telling me what to do. I even read my Bible in dreams. It counts. It's a joke. It's a joke. So in this particular conversation, Jesus says to me, what happens if the hotel exercises their option, which is to kick you out? That someone on the other side of you that has the other half of the ballroom wants to buy you out. Because we have that option as well, to buy the other half out. What happens if they exercise that? And it's like, well, they'll find another place. It's like, do you know where they're going to send you? It's like, no. Anyways, we went through this whole scenario, and in the dream, it was to come to here, which is a venue that we had booked for 2 nights. This was a convention center prior to us being in here. And it had gone bankrupt, and it's empty. And when we looked at this building to move in here, we were not thinking here. We were thinking our whole church just up there for Sundays. Because remember, we're a church of 300 people. We don't need this. But when the revival begins, you need this. So anyways, long story short, the hotel phoned me the very next morning. The other people have exercised their option, you're out. Oh, where are you thinking of putting us? Well, we're thinking of moving you to the Congress Center. Perfect. What about transportation? What about chairs? What about sound system? And it was yes, everything the Lord talked to me about, it was yes, 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 and we had a free ride. When we're in this building, the bankruptcy trustees said, would you like to have the building? Like, would you like to move in? And they had a 1-page lease that they'd already signed. If we signed, it's ours. And the lease was less than we were paying for a building that sat 300. And we'd been trying to find places for like a year, couldn't find it. So John Arnott on the Sunday morning, the conference is finished, but we had Sunday morning church here, and I stayed here with Mark DuPont, who was one of our pastors, a prophetic guy, and so we did church for all the visitors, and our church, for the first time in a year, had a private meeting. Everyone thought John Arnott was going to be here. We didn't tell him different, but our church had a private meeting, and John said, how many of you like that, the conference center? How many of you like to move in? Let's take a vote. How many like to move in? Everyone put their hand up because, good, we signed for it yesterday. So that's how we do our votes. Everyone voted, but we signed for it yesterday. Great. Alrighty, let's talk about some warnings. Okay, sorry, sir. Go ahead. Tom's right behind you. Tom is the assistant pastor, by the way, at Catch the Fire London. That's why I'm getting him to run.
Okay. As a regional church, this all works well, but you're now going national. You're in Montreal now, or you're going to New Brunswick?
Those churches are not campuses.
They will not be campuses?
No, they are an independent church that is going to be doing campuses in Montreal and Quebec. Yes. So we're sticking to the GTA area. We haven't figured out how far we're going to go, because our next venue is Kitchener, which is an hour west.
So if I understand, you're going to membership? As
yes.
You have been. So what has triggered you?
Non-voting members. We're calling it family. You're joining family. And one of the things that Jonathan Puddle is going to be talking about in his session right now, which you've missed, is we have a brand new software from a company called Church Community Builder. CCB is their name, they're an American company. And they've basically done, they have a software program that's sort of like Facebook for churches. And it has no name. You have to name the software yourself. And we're naming it Connect. And our issue is, how do we connect people? How do we inform people what's going on? And this software everyone has their own little page. There's all sorts of protection for minors and those kind of things. But all the cell leaders will be able to just hit one button and just send to their cell leaders, by the way, we're all changed. We're going to be at so-and-so's house, and we're having potluck. Who'd like to sign up for this, this, and this? You can volunteer for any of the ministry different things. You can register for stuff. It's basically all the things about connecting people in one software. And so as part of that, we're going to be saying different levels of like, are you just an attendee or are you a member? And so it's not going to say member. It's going to be, say, family. Would you like to join family? And there's a whole process to become a member that's not hard at all. You have to be born again and breathing, and that's about it.
Is that the software that's out in the lobby?
No, I don't think they're out there, but Jostle is out there. Jostle's a very interesting one, if I can just say it about it. Jostle for us is an internal one, but it's a visual pyramid of who people are, and our staff love it. It's not going to change the world, but it just helps because we're a larger organization and we have ministries and offices around the world. It allows everyone to see who is it I'm talking to, who is it I'm sending an email to. And so I only go there occasionally, and it's like, well, who is it in South Africa that's done this? I go quickly, Joss, that's what they look like. Yes, I remember.
But the other one you were talking about?
Church Community Builder. Their guy is in the office because they're training our London team right now. Church Community Builder is the company. Yeah. We did quite a bit of research looking around, and we came down to 2 groups, and I can't remember the second one.
We're a foundation in
Yep.
Germany, and so we don't have any members.
Right.
But we hand out a spiritual member, we call it.
Spiritual member, yep.
You know, thing that they fill out. Are you behind the vision?
That's basically it.
You know, are you willing to support it?
Yeah.
Have you been water baptized, filled
Yep.
with the Holy Ghost? You know,
Yep.
that
We don't
they've
ask those
gone through
questions.
certain things in order to
Yeah. We have things that we say, these are our values. For example, we say, what have you got, John? On the back of the book, Church Community Builder they have an advertisement in your book.
Okay, great. Thank you.
On the back page. What were we just saying?
About what's on the spiritual member.
Yes, so we have 3 things that and this will be our next sermon series probably from March, is if you're going to be a part of a family in the New Testament, if you're a part of the church family, you were attending on a regular basis. So we're going to talk about what are the benefits of attending on a regular basis. Good, like what you get to do and what you get to receive. We're going to talk about giving of your finances and just how that whole process. We believe in tithing in our church. We are not forcing people to be tithers. We want them to be tithers, but we're not saying if you're not a tither, you can't be a member. And then the last one is to be serving and having a ministry role, and you don't have to be serving, but that would be, this is what our highest level, these are the things that we believe in. And so if you believe in those things, even though you're not doing it, fine. I want to make it easier for people to feel belonging. That's the whole thing, is that they belong. Is that all right? I grew up Baptist, and you had to jump through hoops to be a member. Like if you weren't friends with Jesus, like real tight friends, you couldn't do it.
So what does your AGM look like? For the sake of the Canadian government, you must have some sort of membership.
Yes. No, we don't have to have membership for the Canadian government. We'd have to have a reporting Sunday for our charity, and we do that 2 ways. It is a video that we report back to everybody. And so everyone sees a financial overview, those kind of things. And we also have for the financial reports, I bring in 300, not necessarily the top 300 givers in our church, but 300 people that I know are actively giving, are tithing, and are supporting our ministry. And we bring those people in that are covering 90% of our income. And those people get the financial, because they're the ones giving. The people that give $10, I don't want to have them ask a question about why we're spending money. They haven't deserved to answer that or ask a question in my mind. So we have a private meeting that's not advertised. Nice banquet for our givers, the people that stand with us financially. And again, it's not the highest givers, it's people that we just sort of look at their giving patterns and say, we think this person is an extravagant giver. They have the right to ask questions. But anyone in our church and any Canadian can go to the Canadian government website and see our full report. We have to file that every year. Yeah. Is that all right? Okay, let's keep going. So here's some things. There will be competitive issues between the campuses. While we like each other, there are times when people say, well, how come they got to and how come they got to? Sandra and I had a very interesting transition when we became the senior pastors, that it's not like Sandra and Naomi have been best friends for 18 years. But now all of a sudden, Sandra and Naomi have gone from colleagues to now Sandra gets to say to Naomi, no. And that changes things. And so our role, we very quickly couldn't be, like we're friends with people, but at the same time, if someone needs to say no, it's now us. Someone needs to see a bigger picture. And I love the fact that our campus pastors argue on behalf of their needs. Like they need to do that. But sometimes it's how come they get to and how come they don't and those kind of things. And you just need to know that those things are going to happen. This model of multiple campuses is not making you money. Long term, it's expanding your income, but it costs, because we have 11 sound systems to rent or to own. We have building rentals, schools, community centers, those kind of things. It originally costs more. Yes, sir?
Yeah, just a question.
Just microphone's coming.
So when you have, one campus saying we need this, one campus saying we need this, why aren't we getting this and that? Is there churches traditionally have a board of directors or whatever that would make decisions on behalf of the organization. How does it work with the campuses? Like in your situation, like you ultimately make, you and Sandra, I guess, or
Yes and no. A lot of decisions are made. We have a weekly meeting almost every Thursday from 5:30 to 6. And that we just call a scheduling time. We sit down, we plan stuff together, we think things through. So for example, one of the recent things that came up is, we're just talking about budgets right now. We actually haven't approved our 2011 budgets yet, and so we're just still going through the process. We've had some hiccups, so we just got a little bit late. All the new software that's coming in has just sort of slowed everything down. So in the process, everyone gets a say. We're talking it through. We're talking principle kind of things, and everyone does get a say. But if we're at the place where someone needs to say, okay, we're making a decision, and Sandra and I make that decision, John and Carol have the right to supersede us. Supersede, is that the right word? Veto? Override, that's a better word. They've only done that a couple times. I don't know how this happened, but Sandra and I, when we knew we were going to become the senior pastors, we had 6 months' notice, and the church had 3 months' notice. And Sandra and I talked with John and Carol. We said the very first thing that we'd like to do is to bless our pastors, because one of the rules that we have at our church to stop the pastors always traveling is that you are allowed to travel for 3 weeks a year, but when you travel, you go off salary. We get so many invitations that our pastors could be away forever and not do their jobs, but get a full-time salary for not doing their jobs. So John made a rule: when you go off salary and just go crazy. If it's a missions thing, you stay on salary, but if you're getting an honorarium, you do it because you're called, not just doing it for double dipping, as it were. So Sandra, our pastors aren't the highest paid pastors. My salary is $45,000. So most of you make more than that. I have colleagues in the city with churches a tenth our size that are making $200,000. So we're not in it for the money. And our pastors a whole bunch of our pastors, by the way, make more than I do. I'm very happy with that. I've been arguing for their salary increases. I let other people argue for mine. By the way, that's not how much money I make. The Lord gives me a lot more money. I just give away and I get more money coming in. So anyways, don't have to tell you how that works. So anyways, we talked with John and Carol. Can we change that policy? So reluctantly, John says, yes, you can change that. So the very first Monday, we've just been installed as the pastors. The next day, an email to the pastors: want to let you know our first act as new pastors is to change this rule, and now you can travel for 3 weeks, stay on salary, but only 3 weeks, and that's another way to increase your income. I got a phone call from John Arnott with probably 2 minutes of that email going out. Steve, what did you do? No, we're not doing that. It's like, next email went out. Okay, my first mistake is that was premature. So pretend you didn't see that email. It was like, oh. So I don't know how we miscommunicated, but anyways. So John does have the right to do those kind of things. But that rarely ever happens. We've earned the right for them to trust us. Sandra and I talk through every big issue with John and Carol. Everything. They're updated on stuff all the time, probably 10 emails a day, conversations, Skypes, those kind of things, just keeping them in the loop. They're far wiser than Sandra and I are. Is that all right? Right. Number 3, there will be desire of some of the campuses to go independent, especially if they feel that they are contributing more of the income and that they could go independent. So we've had that occasionally, and usually that's on a bad day, when, again, they've had a no on something. So we brought in a consultant about 3 years ago, a gentleman by the name of Bobby Hill. He is based in Virginia Beach. and was an amazing help to our ministry of just helping us think through the different kinds of models that you can have for campuses, because there's a whole bunch of different ways to do campuses, multiple site venues. And he talked through the different funding kind of things. He talked about the different levels of connection and all that kind of stuff. All those kind of things. And we decided that we are staying as one church, one budget, all those kind of things. It would be our choice, I think, as John and Carol and my wife and I, to release a campus to be a independent church, and we did that once already. We used to have a Spanish congregation that was a Spanish campus. They met in this building, and we just felt that that more and more their values weren't ours, they were just slightly different. And we were just starting to butt a little bit on vision and those kind of things. And so Sandra and I just sat down with them after like a long process and just said, guys, here's what we think. We think it's best for you guys to just follow the things that God's called you to, which are just slightly different. And we're going to bless you to be a church plant so that you can be independent. We're still friends. We're still connected, all that kind of stuff. But you're a church plant as of such and such a day. And that was the choice that they made as well. We gave them a couple different choices. That was the choice that they made. So we have done that once. But it wasn't at their asking. It was at our thinking. So I don't know where we're going to go down the line. I know that Kensington Temple in London, I wouldn't say had a blow up, but they had a number of churches that just didn't like sort of where things were going. And that, I don't know any of the issues, but I just know that they gave away 60 churches in one day to be independent churches back into the Elam fellowship. So who knows where things are going. Need to think through when your campuses are allowed to get a more permanent venue. So we've set the number at when you start having 200 people attending on an average. That's when we'll think about getting you a permanent venue, because a permanent venue, if attendance goes down, you're stuck with it. And so you better have the income to be able to fund those kind of things. And our Newmarket campus is the first one, and so they moved into this venue the middle of December. First Sunday in December, had our dedication the second Sunday of January, and so they're in. And we have two campuses that meet there. We have an adult campus, or a multi-generational campus in the morning, and we have a young adult 20, 30-somethings that meet there in that very same venue in the evening. So you just need to know that is going to be a common thing, is when do we get our own building? Because it's so much easier, the setting up and the tearing down in schools. If any of you have done that, it just gets tedious after a while, doesn't it? Especially if you don't have storage. Last thing in this is you need to think through how you pay your pastors. Does everybody get the same salary for the same kind of work? What about if someone has a doctorate degree and a master's degree and someone doesn't, and they've been pursuing their theological education? Do you reward them for that? So we have been, everybody gets the same salary. So for example, most of our pastors get paid $11,000 per day that they work per week. So if you work 5 days a week for the church, you get $55,000. If you work 4 days a week, 44, 33, 22, 11 kind of thing. So most of our pastors, half of our pastors would be at 33 or 22, and the other half would be at 55. That's where most of them are. There's a couple little exceptions for different things that have happened, but for the most part, that's what we've done, is just you're all equal, even though there's inequality in terms of the education, the size of the church that they're looking after. And we have decided that we're going to do a whole review, which we've been in for at least a year now, trying to just figure out how do you come up with a formula that would work for allow people who have theological training, that have pastored for 15 years. Should they get the same salary as someone who's just pastored 1 year? Well, there's all these different kind of things. It's like, well, what kind of life experiences are they coming from? Like, for example, Paul Manwaring talked about Faustin last night, who pastors our Mississauga campus, is the first pastor that got saved in this church. He used to be the hotel manager. Well, when he joined our team, even though he doesn't have theological training per se, he comes with a management degree. He comes with a business experience, and he knows how to run things. He knows how to organize stuff. And so that's a skill set you want as well. So does he get penalized at 50 years of age because he's a brand new pastor and doesn't have theological training, but has 20 years of life experience? So you just need to think through how you're going to do all these these different kind of things. Let's talk about some of the benefits. You absolutely spread your reach. I think all the church growth statistics would say that the best way to expand the kingdom of God is to start a new church. Every time there's a new church started, kingdom stuff happens in that community. So when we start a new campus, we try to have 50 people that go with that new campus. Not necessarily people that leave here, but somehow from our gathering of people that like us in that community, they've got a core of 50 people to start with. Some of our campuses only had 10, 15 people that have transferred from an existing campus who happen to live in that area and want to be in that area. But when we're starting in an area, because of the revival meetings that have happened, because of the reputation of our church, people are saying, well, if you ever moved here, I would definitely go to that church. And sadly, there are 50% of Canadians who are born again don't go to church. I think it's higher in the States. It's like 50, it would appear about 50% of born again people do not go to a church, not aligned. And so we've got a lot of prodigals that we actually gather back in. We're weird enough and unique enough that they're going to give church another try. And so we get some of these people as we move in. So our stat that we've looked at now is that at 2 years on, 80% of the people who attend the campus have no history with us prior to that. They maybe came to a conference, but they have no history. So it's been very interesting to see our growth that way. You certainly begin to have a citywide influence, so that we're at the place now when we can do citywide outreaches and go to an event that draws people from all over the city. So our best one that we've come up with this last year, Canada has a holiday in February 21 this year called Family Day. Not Canada, Ontario, the province of Ontario. I think Alberta has it as well. It's maybe 5 years old as a holiday. We used to take out all the chairs, rent bouncy castles, dunk tanks, riding bulls, sumo wrestler outfits, and just put on a big carnival for our people. So we'd have 300 people show up, 30 people get saved when we do the little gospel presentation, bring in a ventriloquist, a comedian. Where's the comedian? Right there. Bring in someone, to do family stuff, and we'd have our own little fun, and it would cost us $10,000 a year to just go crazy on that day for 30 souls. It's like, okay, that was good. One of our pastors heard that a secular organization was at one of the big convention centers, 5 minutes away from here. And they had like 20,000 people show up over 3 days, doing the same thing, bouncy castles and all that kind of stuff. And so he phoned up and found out that for $8,000, we could be the title sponsor. And for $8,000, we got to bring entertainers to their event. They needed volunteers to put little Johnny onto the bouncy castle. They didn't have people to draw from, and as a church, we have people. So it was an amazing partnership. 25,000 people showed up over 3 days to a secular event that we took over. I was a greeter for 8 hours one day. And parents afterwards are going, oh, you're so good at just doing this. It's like, yeah, I practice at church every Sunday. You're a pastor? You're at a church? It's like, yeah, I go to church just over here. Do you know this Love Our City that's sponsoring this? Yeah, who are? Well, that's a church. Really? Did you go to their exhibit over here? No. You know where you're getting all the free chocolate? We gave away 6,000 boxes of Turtles chocolates. We had to sponsor one of the gals in our church, one of our cell leaders, works for Nestle's. And this year it looks like she's getting black magic for us. And she said, is it a problem for a church to give away black magic? And it's like, it's chocolate. We don't care what it's called. It's chocolate. So what we had right beside Nintendo launched in Canada a brand new, one of these Japanese little games that all the little kids like one of these little thingies. I don't know what it was called. But right beside them, because our $8,000, we got to set the floor plan. And we put ourselves, we had a booth right beside Nintendo, which we knew was the next biggest sponsor. And we had this big wheel, and every second spot that you span it was free chocolate. And you got 2 spins per person. So you got a good chance that you're going to get it. And if you didn't get your box of chocolates, get to the back of the line and go again. And if you got the box of chocolates, you got a ticket to say, go to the Love Our City booth, which is manned by our pastors. And we just start conversations. Who are you guys? Why are you giving away chocolate? It's like, well, we just want to love our city. Well, who are you guys? Well, we're actually a church. Oh, whereabouts? Well, where do you live? Scarborough. Oh, yeah, we have a church. We're right, at the Holiday Inn and that. Oh, yeah, well, that's our church. Oh. Well, because we got 11 venues, it doesn't matter where they say, we're there or close enough. Does that make sense? So that's the power as you begin to grow is you can do the Starbucks advertising, the McDonald's advertising. It's one advertisement, but there's McDonald's everywhere that help pay for it. So that's the larger you get in campuses, your reach, you can do those kind of things. Number 3, you get to raise up leaders very, very quick this way. You are forced to have 10 bands, 11 bands. Like the band that was playing today, other than the 2 guys over here, were from our newest campus. Now Laura, who was leading, she's led worship for years. She knows how to do it. But some of the people that were even playing today, this is their first time ever to be in a band. Not today, but in September was the first time for them to be in a worship team. The gal who's on the keyboards, the gal who's on the guitar, as far as I'm aware, haven't been a part of another worship experience before they came to that campus. But at that campus, they need all hands on deck. And so all of a sudden, people begin to see skills and all that kind of stuff. So we're raising up leaders, which is one of our 4 core values, is to raise up leaders. And number 5, you get to see which of your cell leaders have the potential of being campus pastors. We did something last year, and Beza, want to put your hand up, Beza? Just wave over here. Beza is an Ethiopian lady in our church that has a call of God in her life. And so we've identified Beza as one of the people that there's the potential that she could be one of our campus pastors at some point down the line. And so we did a training for cell leaders that we chose to come to our first shot at just what do we need to teach our cell leaders, what skills do they need to learn in order to become a pastor of one of our campuses, whether full-time or part-time. And we offered any of them who would like basically a 6-month internship where they could go to one of the smaller campuses and get to see hands-on what it looks like, all the work that goes into it. And so Beza was at our Mississauga campus for 6 months, Beza? About that, and just seeing what was going on. She had opportunity to help lead some of the meetings, do the offering talks, do those kind of things. She got opportunities that she's not going to get in a larger venue like this. So it's all about training people to expand. That's our struggle is always identifying who those leaders are. It's just, that's what you got to do as a leader. Number 5, newer and smaller campuses get to enjoy the benefits of a larger church. So the look of our smallest campus is around 50 people. But when you walk in, it doesn't look like it's 50 people from the advertising, from the look of it, from the sound system, from the feel of it. It looks like that they're part of something bigger. And the signage and all those kind of things says we are part of something bigger. We just happen to be this group that's meeting at this location. But they get to have a full missions program that they can sell their people on and be 50 people. So that's another benefit of the larger you get, the more reach you can do and the more different things that can be taking place. Number 6, this is a very interesting one. We have people occasionally don't like us. They don't like their pastor, they've had a fight with their cell leader, and they're angry and they're going to leave church. But they actually do like us, and so they go to a different campus. So we actually haven't lost them. They've just moved to a different campus. And so we get a second chance to be nice to them and to pastor them through their issues and all that kind of stuff. This is one of the funnest parts of my job, is to meet with the pastors and find out that someone has left their campus angry and is now at a different campus. And they begin to go, why did that other campus pastor welcome them so easily? And I heard they're in the band. And like we were disciplining them. It's like, okay, well, I didn't know that. So we just talk it through and help people to grow. And it's just a funny little sort of quirky thing. But we actually have a whole bunch of people, not a whole bunch, but we've had people that transfer out, but they transfer to another one of our campuses. That's better than them going to the Baptists. It's my tradition. How do we keep everyone together? How do we make sure that everyone's one church? Number 1 is video announcements, and mostly that's me. And it's about 3 to 4 minutes every week, usually a little bit of vision. That means get ready to take questions. It's sharing 2 or 3 announcement things that are church-wide, not specific for one campus. So for example, this week we're talking about encounters that are taking place, a weekend encounter to get rid of your demons, start the process of inner healing, get baptized in the Holy Spirit, understand what the values of our church is. And so our Newmarket campus, where Naomi is, we're having a men's encounter, a ladies' encounter, and a young adult encounter all at the same time at their venue, and anyone from any of the campuses can show up to that. So that's on there. We're talking about this campus is starting a men's ministry this coming Saturday, and they have an ex-porn actress that is out of that is going to be the speaker. And so all the guys from all the campuses are welcome to come to that. I'm talking about Kids Camp has already set the date for when they're going to be having Kids Camp in the summer, which is all the campuses, all the families get to send their kids, and I'm talking about Kids Fest. I do vision things occasionally. I give reports of missions. I give reports of financial or special offerings we're taking, those kind of things. It's my opportunity to speak to everybody, and they also get that via email in the week as well. So if they miss Sunday, they get that on email so that if they incline, they can do that, or they can go to our website and see all the different announcements and those kind of things. We do a lot of video announcements for our church family. We do leadership events. We talked about that earlier, keeping everyone together. So 4 times a year we have minister workers things. We have a big banquet here in November. And I was talking to this pastor from Philadelphia. I found out he's a professional comedian. And so it's like, I've been looking to bring in a comedian for our minister workers and just have us laugh for 15, 20 minutes. He says he needs an hour. So I hope they don't start laughing an hour in. If they laugh for an hour, that's good. So I don't know this gentleman. I've just found out about him, so I'm intrigued. So we do those kind of things. It's one kids camp, it's one family camp, it's one youth camp, those kind of things that bring people together. And what else do we need to say? Our pastors rotate and speak at each other's campuses as guest speakers. It's not as much as it used to be that process is going, just because cell leaders are now stepping up and speaking. Our sermons, or let me put it this way, our church is not about the preaching. That's not our highest value. Our highest value is the presence of God in the meeting. So that means that preaching is secondary to that. Worship is above preaching at our church. So we start with worship. And if we get to the sermon, we get to the sermon. And most Sundays we get to the sermon. So it's not that we disvalue the preaching, but we value the presence of God more. So I was joking, Mark Stibbe's scheduled the preacher on Sunday morning. The last time he was scheduled as preacher on a Sunday morning, which was Mother's Day last year, he never did get to preach. The Holy Spirit showed up. The ladies on the prophetic team took over. And it was a great meeting, and he got his check and was happy. So the preaching is not the highest thing, but obviously we value that. And so when the pastors go to each other's churches, they can be the motivator, they can be the guest speaker, and it saves us some budget and all those different kind of things. Number 4 is John and Carol speak at each one of our venues once a year. And it's getting harder for them to do that. John travels 250 days a year. So he spoke, his first time to speak at this church last year was November, because he went to all the other campuses first before he came here. So he is here occasionally. He's just come back from somewhere traveling. He's just getting ready to leave, and he needs to fly from the airport. So sometimes he's here on a Sunday and doing nothing. But in terms of if he's got time to speak, he takes a rotation through all the campuses. My wife and I do that. So this coming Sunday, I am at our Mississauga campus, and next week I am at our Ajax campus, and next Sunday Sandra is at our Scarborough campus. And we just rotate around at all the different campuses and are there. Mary Audrey Raycroft, Jeremy and Connie, they rotate around as well. So that tries to keep everyone together on one team. Again, we talked about this, one kids pastor, one youth pastor that coordinate on behalf of all the places. And then branding and marketing is just all the things that we do constantly say, we're one church, we just meet in different locations. And we just sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it. And I don't think anybody now wouldn't know that we're one church that meets in different locations. Our first campus, when it started, they were the toughest one to convince that we're one church, because they were the first ones out, 35-minute drive away on the east side of the city, and they began, as new people began to come, they have no experience with multiple campuses, and they were saying, well, how come all your money's going back into the other place? Well, it's not going to the other place. It's going to the head office, which happens to be beside the other place. But that's not what they were thinking. It's like all of our money is going to pay their bills. How come we don't get to use all of our money? Well, it's because we're sharing IT and, yeah, but we don't need all those kind of things. And we had a whole bunch of newcomers that just didn't understand what we were doing. And the first couple years were hard to convince them. And so John Arnott and myself were out there much more frequently just to show our faces, to be there, all those kind of things. And now it's real easy. They all just know this is what we are, this is who we are. Number 7, our pastors meet together. We talked about that. We have a cell group on Thursday nights. We like each other for the most part. We sit down, we have meals together. We try to make sure that we are intentionally friends, colleagues, even though we may not be seeing each other any other time during the week than that. Number 8, I talked about this. We meet for the most part every second week. Number 9 is a big one. All of our pastors, senior leaders, in fact, our senior leaders in a couple weeks, not our pastors, our ministry directors are having a retreat, and so it's a build-up, it's a planning, those kind of things. Our pastors, most years, we take them to Mexico. So this is a nice time. It's a little bit of a vacation, but it's also work. So we have 3 parts of the day. We have a person that we bring in to minister to us. So Mark Stibbe's probably coming to our retreat next year, or this coming year, and he's going to speak once a day and do Father Heart ministry to our pastors. So we value our pastors getting ministry. We will take one session where we're going to be doing planning and reviewing and all that kind of stuff, and we do one part of our day, usually the afternoon, what we call play. So it's by the pool, it's by all that kind of stuff. I have a businessman friend who also is a pastor in Mexico City, and he has a huge 8-bedroom guest house outside of Mexico City that he built as a retreat center for pastors. And it just happens that his next door neighbor is even richer than he is and also born again and likes me. And so a whole bunch of our pastors stay there, and then the rest stay at hotels. And we're just living an extravagant life for a week. And it costs us less to go to Mexico because we cash in all of our credit card miles for airplanes. So we would spend about $2 million a year on credit cards and get 2 million miles to fly pastors and missionaries and all that kind of stuff around. So when we're going on missions trips, often we're able to add extra people going because we've got all these miles to use. So we use half the miles towards our pastor's retreat. Just saves us money. Half the pastors go down on a Saturday and will speak at a church on the Sunday. The other half go on a Monday and stay until Monday, and so everyone gets a little ministry. And if you get any pesos, we put it on the pot, give it to our host, pays for the food. So one year it cost 24 of our pastors to fly to Mexico, stay there, and have wonderful meals for a week. It cost us, I think, $7,500. We couldn't go to a retreat center for one day in Toronto for that. So it sounds extravagant, and it is, but it costs us nothing. And you can't have his name. Microphone?
So that means that the frequent flyer miles...
Yes, for our credit card.
Church.
Yes.
When a pastor flies somewhere.
If anybody is doing anything on behalf of our church, we put it on a church credit card. So if I'm flying to visit you and I'm representing our church, it does not go on my personal credit card. It goes on a church credit card, so the church gets the bonus because the church has paid the bill.
And so that credit card is a frequent flyer.
Yeah, it's with Air Canada. Yeah, yeah. So if Steve Long is going somewhere where it's on my free time and I'm paying the bill, I can go on my credit card and I can get the rewards that way. But we put everything we can on credit card. It gives us, it does a number of different things. It gives us rewards, but it also gives us another billing statement to be able to help our auditors to be able to track things as well. So it helps that way too. Yeah. Alrighty, that's it. Questions? Naomi's over here. Just put your hand up. It's over there, sir.
When you're... 2 questions. The first one's real quick. The seminar on planting churches, I'm assuming the difference between a campus and a church is one's independent?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
When you're going into other areas that have other churches, have you had issues with other pastors from other churches concerned about sheep stealing, all that sort of thing? And how do you handle all those things?
I'll give you an example. So Hamilton was our newest campus in September last year. We have 2 churches in Hamilton that are part of our existing network, Partners in Harvest. I went and visited both of them. In fact, I said, can I take both of you out for lunch? And I took Faustin with me, who is our Mississauga pastor, who was overseeing the process of that one starting. Whenever we start a new campus, generally we have another pastor that is helping to oversee and mentor the new guy coming in or the new couple coming in. Naomi and her husband do that for a new campus we're hoping to start in Stouffville. So they're working through the process and just helping to mentor. So Foster and I met with these two pastors. We explained exactly what we're going to do. We said, here's what our intent is. We will absolutely do our best not to take anyone from your church. And if someone is leaving your church and coming to us, we will tell you that that's happening. So they were fine. They understand that Hamilton's a large city and that we had 50 people living in the Hamilton, commuting already to one of our venues, mostly our Mississauga campus, which is closer. And as it turned out, not one person from their churches has come because if you're already in a church, why are you going to jump? Like you're committed there, and their vision is just slightly different. Like one's very much in the prophetic, much more in the prophetic, and one's much more focusing on blessing the nation of Israel. So we haven't had any jumping. But I think that would be, if Benny Hinn was to say, I'm coming back to Toronto to pastor a church, because his first church was in Toronto, if he announces, I'm moving to Toronto, starting a church, I'd be going, oh my goodness, we are going to lose people. So I understand what that's like. People think that we're a big machine coming in. No, we're doing all the work as well. We're trying to win people to Jesus, and we don't have an advantage that way. It's work. Yep. Good. Another question? Yes, sir? Tom's got you.
Can you clarify, for Canadian government purposes, the application of not having members? You have to have some sort of membership to approve. Is it the board of directors that you use as your membership?
We are a incorporated charity. So you can be an unincorporated charity or you can be a charity. We function under the incorporated side. We have never been required to have members. We do have a board, and so the board functioned to represent our church in all the legal, buying a property, selling a property, passing budgets, those kind of things. Yeah. But you're not obliged to have members, as far as I'm aware. We've never had members.
When you get incorporated, initially you have to have at least 3 members.
Yeah, so I think our board functions.
Our board,
yeah.
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 What made you,
Tom?
the decision? Why did you make the decision to move into membership direction?
This is an
calling
interest-
it family,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of requirements.
Okay.
Why did you go?
So here's an interesting thing. We're a church that believes in inner healing. We take people through the process of breaking judgments and vows and unforgiveness and all the hurts that have come. And we recognize that as our church has gone on, our church as a ministry has hurts, wounds, etc. And because we're people. So what we did was we happened to know that Chester and Betsy Kilstra, do you know Chester and Betsy Kilstra? Have you heard of them? And they're based somewhere in North Carolina, I think. Do Restoring the Foundations, Inner Healing Deliverance. Chester has written a book for businesses to go through curses, ungodly beliefs, to just go through that whole process for a Christian business, to unravel any spiritual junk that may be on a business. So we said to him, do you do churches? And found out actually that John and Patricia Bootsma, who are hosting today in our Stratford church, they had brought them in to do something for churches. And so we brought the Kilstras here. And as we're going through all the different spiritual things that we're aware of that are happening on a repeated thing, we just listed them all. As we went through that, the biggest thing that we felt is that we are telling people by not having membership that you cannot belong. That's what we're saying. We're not wanting to say that, but when people say, can I join your church? Well, we don't have membership. Join a cell group. Oh. And we're basically saying you cannot belong. And now we're trying to figure out why have we had 40,000 people go through our church family in 20 years. Huge back door, huge front door, people coming, but people, and the ones that disappear aren't people that we know. There's like on a Sunday here, we're pretty well full on a Sunday morning. I can't tell you probably more than 200 names though. And it's just, I don't know these people. I know that they were here last week and the week before, but I don't know them. And when they're gone, I don't know that they've left. So that was, we felt, our biggest issue. And as we're praying through that, we just felt, okay, we need to do something so that people can belong. So that's what we explained with our cell leaders in the summer, that this is the issue, this is what came up, and here's what we're thinking of doing as a result to try to close that spiritual hole. Yeah. Yes, sir. Tom, you should be sitting in the middle row here.
Yeah, two questions that may be part of the same thing, I don't know. One is that we found it very easy to raise up people who are willing to do the work of the ministry, prophetic teams, healing teams, the whole bit.
Yeah.
But when we say, hey, let's start a second service or a second campus, they go, no way, we like it here. We're not going even 5 kilometers away, right? So how do you get people to be willing to go, right? The second thing is, again, people want to minister, but you say, who wants to be a pastor? They go, are you nuts? We've seen the way our parents treated their pastors. There's no way we want to do that ourselves. So how do you get courage in people to risk being a pastor?
Yeah, not everybody in a region will attend that church, even when it starts. So we have people that pass 5 or 6 campuses to come here because this is their history. This is where their friends are. This is where their kids like to be with their friends, all that kind of stuff. So that is absolutely going to happen. What we generally do in a new campus is we do 3 months to 6 months of practice meetings, usually on a Friday night or Saturday night, where people can come, get to know who the pastor is or that's going to be chosen. And sometimes we don't even know who the pastor is when we start the run-up meetings. We have an idea, but we don't necessarily even know. And so we're just gathering people in an area, and then we're starting to see if they can begin to have affinity with the pastors, because that's really their first thing, is who do they feel called to be with? Some people are called to a person, some are called to a city, but a whole bunch of people are called to be with a pastor. I like them. I think they could be my spiritual leader, that kind of stuff. So it gives an opportunity for dating. And I would say on a fairly regular basis when we're starting a new campus, friends, all of you that live in this area, can I encourage you, try that church out for a month. Go there for a month and just see what it's like, see if the Lord's in it for you. And if not, you're welcome back here. I tell our church on a regular basis, take vacation Sundays from here and go and visit another campus, even if it's not in your area, just so you can see what's going on, so you can be praying better. But you can't force people to go where they don't want to go. And then what was your second part?
People afraid to be pastors.
People are afraid to be pastors. I don't know that we have that problem. We have people that are reluctant to maybe step into those kind of things. We grow our own pastors as well. We haven't imported a pastor for a while. They've like Dan and Laura, who are leading worship. Laura's been around our church and connected. She's done soaking here. She's attended one of our campuses. And so when she stopped her itinerant ministry, she's us. So that was sort of an easy one. But for the most part, it's cell leaders that we see the call of God in their life. And they've proven to us by raising up leaders. That's the big one. Can they raise up leaders? And if they can do that, we have a grooming process that we're just starting to do and trying to identify them. I quite often meet with people, take them out for lunch, and just say, my wife and I feel that at some point in your future, we'd like to have you be a campus pastor. What do you think? Oh, pastor, I don't know if I could ever do that. Well, I'm not saying tomorrow, but can you just be thinking, praying into that if the Lord's called you to that? And quite often they come back and say, you know what, the Lord said that is part of my destiny. It's like, great, we'll help you get there. And it's not the same as church planting, which you're by yourself. So they get a team, and we're learning things like, again, Naomi and her husband, Naomi and her husband have been a part of this church almost since day one.
Bruno came in 89.
In 89.
He
when
got
there was
saved and came into this church.
Yeah, so he was here, her husband was here when there was like 25 people in this church. So he's grown up, and we just seen Bruno's heart. We know that he has a call of God in his life. And when we're ready to start a campus, we said, who's got the most cells? Bruno and Naomi. Okay, you guys ready? Yes. I didn't even need to ask that question. They were ready to go. And they're ministering in an area that they don't live in. Doesn't matter. They were just ready to go.
But I was a reluctant pastor because there's many pastors in my family, and I was like, that is not me. I married a construction manager, not a pastor. Yeah. Okay, you had a question.
Yeah, sorry, one more. You've already answered, like, you get your leaders together from other campuses, but have you ever had, like, multiple congregations come together for a special service?
Yep. I would say when we were less campuses, that happened probably twice a year. What we're finding is that people, again, 80% of the people have no history with this building. So when we have everyone come together, we only have maybe 20%, 30% of the people come together. So we're actually losing money that day. We're losing effectiveness that day. We had one of those days planned for this year, and this last year, and it was we had booked to speak Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And It's like, oh my goodness, he's finally said yes. He'd canceled twice before at other years, and so it's on his calendar. He's coming. The RCMP have already gone through our building and done all those checks, and so we're ready. And then a post office strike happened. And we got a phone call on the Tuesday. This is how crazy government works. So one of the parties is stopping back-to-work legislation by blocking, they're just filibustering and all that kind of stuff, because their policy is that unions rule and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, it's a post office strike that's going on. It's hindering the business of Canada. And the Prime Minister's office phoned us on a Tuesday and said the strike is going to finish on Sunday. We're going to have the vote on Sunday. So somehow they've already pre-negotiated with all the political parties when the strike's going to finish, even though no one knows that that's taking place. It's already decided. We're going to let you do this for 5 more days. So his office phones, and the Prime Minister will not be able to be here. He has to be at Parliament and get everyone back to work. But everyone was coming together that day, and we said we're still coming together that day, even if, actually we didn't say that. We told people, listen to your pastors, watch the website, we'll tell you. It turned out on the Thursday that the Prime Minister's office phoned back and said, could the leader of the opposition in the province of Ontario, because we have provincial politics as well, could Tim Hudak come and speak instead? And it's like, absolutely. So we did have the day. It wasn't with the Prime Minister. It was sort of like a secondary political leader, still a good guy, and had a wonderful day together, a couple little political speeches. It was a political Sunday. It wasn't a Christian-ish, but it was a day to honor the leaders, to pray for them. He let us pray for him. He started crying when we started praying for him. The presence of God came on the guy. He had to run to another meeting, and he stayed for an extra hour. It was great. Last question. To a German. American German.
I forget his name, the guy that did the presentation on organization. He said it was kind of like a rough thing, 30-30-30 as far as like the home church budget or a church budget. How does that correlate now? How do you do the financial thing when a campus is separate, but the finances flow through a separate account, and then from that it's 27% that goes back into the church? How do you work that correlation of what this church is going to cost the home church?
It's budgets within budgets within budgets. One big budget. We only have one account for everything. One account. All the money comes in, but it's just allocated out. So for example, let's say Naomi again. I'll just pick a number. Let's say their income for their campus is $100,000. Now it's quite a bit more than that, but let's just say it's $100,000. Right away, they only have 63% of that money. They have $63,000 for them to spend, because there's allocations for the shared things that everyone has, the tithe that goes up, those kind of different things. So they can say, okay, here's much salaries, here's much rent, here's all those different kind of things that they want to do. So they build their budget on that. If they're a smaller campus, they're allowed to build a budget that loses money. As long as there's enough money coming in from the other places that balance it all out. So it's a big jigsaw puzzle putting everything together.
So when a person gives their tithe, their offering, is it stipulated on the check for what campus?
No.
Or just...
Every campus has a bag, and it goes into accounting as that bag, and we know that everything in here is Central. Everything in here is Newmarket. Everything is Scarborough. When we have everyone come together on a Sunday, we say, if you're from another campus, please write on your envelope which campus you're part of. But most people have numbered envelopes for the year, and so we know which number it is, and it automatically goes into those accounts. Yeah. I am hoping to get to the place where English churches are. In England, they do their taxes different. There's no benefit to the individual to give, like in North America. We get a tax receipt in North America for political donations, charitable donations. In Britain, the church or the charity gets the benefit. And so the churches get 19%?
28%.
28%. Is it 25? Whatever the number is, it's a good-sized number, but people have to be registered givers. So if you just put 20 pounds in the offering bucket, that doesn't count. But if you filled in a gift aid form and say, I'm a regular giver, and I'm a regular giver, and here's 20, the church gets back 25, 28, whatever that number is, they get that back. So in many churches in Britain, people do, they give their giving by pre-authorized giving, and it just comes out of their bank accounts, whether they're there or not. That's what I want to get to. Because when we have a snowstorm, we have to lay someone off the next day. Now, we don't have to do that, but that's sort of what it looks like, is like, oh my goodness, we just dropped 50,000 in a day because of a snowstorm. And are they going to put their double in next week? No. The real spiritual ones will, but not too many. So it's sort of lost money. So I'm trying to encourage people to give that way. The other challenge that we have with the Canadian government, because they're clamping down all the time, making sure that money's not going to terrorist organizations and things like that, is if people give a $100 bill every week in the offering in an envelope, the Canadian government does not like that. They do not want cash given to charities. They want checks and credit cards so that there's a paper trail that they can see that you're not money laundering. That's the issue. Still doesn't matter if it's cash inside. Some of our people have been challenged on that. They have to prove. How do we know that you didn't just write on $100 on your envelope and nothing was in it? How do we know that there was actually money there that went into the charity? So,
especially for those that are own their own businesses, it's become a huge deal.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I am very happy. I am by no means an expert. We're into our 7th year of doing campuses. I felt the Lord say that by the time I retire, and I turn 55 this year, so that's another 10 years, hopefully maybe longer, I don't know. But I felt the Lord say that by the time I retire, we'd be at 200 campuses. So I don't know what that's going to look like, if that was just really good pizza that night, and I don't know. But it's definitely one of the strategies that we have. And we are also doing church planting. And Rick over here is sort of, if I can use steal the word guru, he is the specialist in our Partners in Harvest in the province of Ontario of helping churches start. So Rick's very, very good. And his church did something very interesting this last year. Remember I was telling in the very beginning saying the newest trend of churches is mergers. And so Rick has done that, of merging in a church that was having some struggles. And so they become one church with 2 venues now. So basically it's like East and West, Rick. Like you've got 2 campuses now, but it's actually a merger. And so I think Rick's going to tell you a little bit about that. Father, bless these pastors, these leaders. And Father, we're asking that your vision would become their vision. And as they are contemplating maybe doing this kind of stuff or doing it better, Father, thank you that you know the answer to every question. And Father, this is your kingdom. And you've promised that you'll help us to expand your kingdom, that as we seek you first, that you're going to do all these kind of things. And so, Father, give us wisdom, give us revelation, give us insight. Father, thank you that we are at best stewards of your people. We're stewards of your resources. So, Father, help us to do well in pastoring your people and your church. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Stand up, take a walk. If you're staying here for Rick, you will be blessed. If you're going somewhere else, may not be as blessed as much. That's all right.